Thank you, Kim. Hello, everyone. I'm so delighted that you have joined this presentation because today I will be talking about innovative approaches that have helped organizations engage employees and the people they serve as a way to motivate them to better interactions and an increased sense of well-being. So, before we talk about the nudge theory, let's talk about engagement because it is so important. It really relates, as we all know, engagement relates to an individual's participation in collective activities that reinforce strong interpersonal relationships, a sense of identity, and a sense of shared understanding of the world. These in turn create a foundation of trust, cooperation, and reciprocity, which are so important for individuals to feel safe, to have a sense of increased self-esteem, and to really feel that they have a sense of belonging in their small community, but also as part of the world at large. And a sense of belonging and self-esteem are the precursors to a sense of fulfillment and self-actualization that are needed to obtain an optimal quality of life, especially as we age, because then we encounter a lot more challenges for both physical and cognitive. And it is really important that we do feel that sense of support and that sense of safety. There are certain key elements to engagement or to feeling engaged. The first one is activity. And that means the extent into which an individual can participate in a broad range of social roles and relationships. The second one is social exchange. And that means the commitment to which an individual can feels that they are part of the group, the commitment they make in order to interact with other individuals that are part of that group. And the third is a lack of compulsion. In other words, that there's no outside force forcing an individual to feel engaged or to stay engaged. Really, engagement is a sense of our own volition. We must feel engaged. We must feel that our needs and our preferences are being addressed, so that way we can stay connected to the activity and to the people and to the relationships that are so important for us to be able to thrive. Now, all of these elements must also address an individual's preferences and their needs. In other words, they must be they must be person-centered. They have to really be about the individual. We must feel that all of the activities that we are engaging in, or most of them at least, really address us as human beings, as people. And so if we have this innate understanding of the importance of engagement in all aspects of our lives, then why is engagement so challenging in senior living communities? Well, lack of engagement is not restricted to senior living by any means. Many industries and organizations struggle to engage employees and the customers and/or the people that they serve. Sometimes this is the result of focusing on the bottom line at the expense of other areas of the organization. Other times, it's an organizational culture that has developed over time that really inhibits a sense of trust, a sense of cooperation, and the reciprocity, sorry about that I mentioned before we all need in order to feel secure, to feel that we're being supported, and for us to be able then to obtain that optimal quality of life that we're looking to enjoy in all aspects of our life, both professionally and personally. Unfortunately, the detrimental effects of disengagement become even more magnified in the senior living field because it affects all aspects of the lives of the people that we serve. Research has found that individuals who feel isolated suffer higher rates of depression, of memory loss or cognitive decline, and also comorbidities and mortality. And then during the age of COVID-19, this has come to the forefront because people have felt so isolated, and they have had to isolate in order to stay healthy. And because of that, many organizations, many governments are really looking at how they can address the negative impact of isolation on senior living residents. As an example, the state of New Jersey recently passed a bill requiring all skilled nursing communities to have tools and programs in place that will address any of the negative impacts of isolation. And this is a prerequisite for licensure. So skilled nursing communities in New Jersey must be able to prove that they're doing something to address isolation, because everybody has really begun to understand how detrimental this can be to residents, to families, and to everyone in the community. So before we delve into solutions or possible solutions for isolation and for the negative effects of disengagement, let's first look at what can impede that sense of being engaged, both professionally and personally. Well, research into organizational culture has shown that if we feel engaged, we want to show the best side of ourselves. We want to bring the best part of us to the job. We want to really be a contributing member of a team and a group. And that is so important for us as individuals. We want to work in an environment that really makes us be the best we possibly can. Unfortunately, many organizational cultures can sometimes inhibit that human desire for engagement and self-expression. And these can lead to symptoms of employee burnout. For one thing, disaffected staff is continuously just wanting to do the tasks that they're required to do, basically not going beyond those tasks that are required to fulfill the job, because they just feel that it is not necessary, that it's not going to be appreciated if they do something that is really wonderful and that it really demonstrates their creativity. So it's not unusual for this staff or this staff that feels disengaged and disaffected to be continuously looking at the clock, counting down the minutes and the hours to the end of the shift. Some other staff may show anxiety. They might be anxious about job security. And again, they will be afraid to do anything beyond what is expected in fear that that's going to draw attention to themselves, and that might then put their job in jeopardy. Other staff that might feel anxious actually go the other direction, and they will then allow their frustration to boil over. These are the employees that are usually called in by HR, and these are the employees that tend to support a very toxic work culture. They're the ones that sometimes will influence other workers, especially newer workers, and it can lead to that organizational culture that becomes toxic and that really becomes a difficult place to work in. Now, staff turnover is another symptom of staff burnout. And as an example, the average staff turnover rate in senior living is 57%. That's quite high. And some communities report rates as high as 90% staff turnover rates. That is really something that should not happen, especially because that can be so detrimental to the quality of care provided to the residents, but also to their quality of life. If you're not able to form relationships with the people in your home, because basically that's what senior living communities are to these residents, then that is going to really inhibit them from establish those relationships that will allow them to stay engaged, that will allow them to be part of that community, that will allow them to continuously thrive even as they age. So it is really important that we look at how we can address these negative impacts of disengagement among staff. But unfortunately, disengagement is also part of the reality of many senior living residents. Unfortunately, the disengagement theory, which was published in the early 60s, has influenced society's perception of aging for all of these decades. The theory states that aging is an inevitable mutual withdrawal or disengagement, resulting in decreased interactions between the aging person and others in their the social systems that he or she belongs to. Unfortunately, this is a belief that it has become integrated into our society. So it's not unusual for professionals to have that misconception, especially those who are new to the field. They seem to think that if someone is sitting alone in the room, not wanting to engage, that's something that's normal. However, even though research has demonstrated that this is an erroneous belief, that this actually has been disproven, it has really become a hindrance for many professionals to understand how disengagement can be detrimental to the health of senior living residents. And the disengaged professional is more likely to buy into the disengagement theory of aging as well, which then leads to the mental distress of residents, to higher rates of depression among residents, to anxiety, to insufficient sleep, reports of frequent pain. And of course, all of this reduces the well-being of residents and of course diminishes their quality of life. Now, customer service experts have seen a link between the work environment and customer satisfaction. One of these service experts, Shep Hyken, has a philosophy for companies to consider as they make decisions that will impact the work environment. And he states, to be the best place to buy, you must be the best place to work. Treat your employees the way you want your customers to be treated. So I suggest that we change this just a little bit so we can address the needs of senior living. To be the best place to live, you must be the best place to work. Treat your staff the way you want your your residents to be treated. That is really important. The staff is really going to impact their quality of work, is going to impact the living environment of your residents, and that is extremely important. Now, many communities, perhaps you also have looked into ways to address the challenges and the negative effects of disengagement and isolation. And you might be looking into strategies to help engage your staff so you will be able to provide the best quality of life to your residents. One of the different tools or strategies being used by senior living communities and many organizations throughout the country or throughout the world is to motivate through rewards. Maybe a bonus, maybe an award, maybe allowing staff to really understand that you value their contributions. And doing this through the rewards can be highly effective. Another strategy being used by many organizations is team building exercises that go beyond in-service trainings. And this is to help improve communication, to increase a sense of trust and cooperation, which I mentioned before is so important for self-esteem and to really commit to share goals. Coaching my mentors is another strategy being used by many organizations. And that's really identifying those employees who are highly engaged and then allowing them to become mentors to new employees. So that way they can promote a positive work environment and they can really allow or to mitigate any of the challenges that might be imposed by more negative employees. Because if you have mentors who are dedicated, who love the place where they work, they're going to not only share those feelings, but are really going to continue creating a very, very positive work environment and a better organizational culture. Many organizations are adopting new tools. They're looking at new tools to implement to be able to provide those tools to the staff so they can then do the best possible job. And so that way they feel that they are being given exactly the tools they need in order to contribute to the organization's success and to making the lives of the residents so much better. However, sometimes people don't act rationally. They are influenced by past experiences, maybe some negative experiences at other companies or other organizations. And even when provided with mentors and tools and motivation, they still feel disengaged and unable to trust. So I would like to suggest another strategy, nudging. So what is nudging? Well, it is a theory that was popularized by two Chicago University scholars. Richard Thaler, he's a behavioral economist, and Cass Sunstein, he's a legal scholar. Now, they propose that positive reinforcement and person-centered indirect suggestions are extremely effective methods to engage folks and to really help them achieve worthwhile goals. Now, many organizations throughout the world have learned about the nudge theory and have implemented this strategy to achieve specific goals. And they really are trying to find how the nudge theory and how nudging can really help them not only achieve their own organizational goals, but really helping those people that they serve to achieve personal goals as well. For one, the UN and World Bank have used the nudge theory or nudging strategies to reduce malnutrition, increase vaccinations, reduce HIV, and improve hygiene. National and local governments have also used the nudging to reduce pollution and in some cases increase safety, like Chicago. There is a part of the road, I think it's Lakeshore Drive, where there's a very, very steep curve and it's really a dangerous curve. So what they've decided to do is to paint lines across the road, getting shorter with a span between each line, getting smaller and smaller. So it creates a visual illusion that you're going faster. And that makes people then put on the brake or slow down a little bit instead of continuing to go too fast. That is a great example of nudging to increase safety, especially for drivers. Also, municipalities are using nudging to increase recycling. As an example, a city in Britain has provided residents with larger recycling bins when compared to the trash bins. This has resulted in an 85% increase in recycling. Companies are also nudging customers to making better decisions that will actually, support healthier decisions, if you will. In the case of a supermarket that has placed green arrows on the floor, and these arrows actually take the customers to the vegetable and fruit aisles. So this actually nudges them to go to make that healthier decision of getting perhaps more vegetables and fruits. And of course, this has led to a skyrocketing in sales for these vegetables and fruits. Not only that, it has also impacted the company's bottom line by reducing waste. So they don't need to throw away as much produce as they had in the past. So this is really a wonderful, wonderful example of how companies can use nudging to help consumers make healthier decisions. Also, healthcare organizations are using nudging. As my example, as you see on the screen, is an Australian teaching hospital, which was having issues, and this was pre-COVID, of course, getting people to disinfect their hands. So what they decided to do is to post a board with hand sanitation rates for this particular hospital, really allowing people and our sense of competition and our wanting to do the right thing and nudging these particular professionals to disinfecting their hands more often. And of course, this led to a higher rate of compliance. And of course, it created accountability within the group because they noticed that if other professionals were doing it, they also wanted to do it. So again, it's really about compliance through nudging, if you will. So, as I mentioned before, and I gave you the examples just a few minutes ago, the nudging can be very, very important and a really great strategy because we are strongly influenced with what others do, as in the case of the Australian teaching hospital. That is why nudging can be so effective. Another reason why nudging can be so effective is because we tend to go with a preset, we tend to go with a flow of preset options. as in the case of the trash bins. So if we have those options, then we tend to want to then go with those preset options. Our attention is drawn by what is novel and seems relevant to us. And a great example of this would be the green arrows on the floor. We notice something a little bit different, and we tend to want to follow that. And I'm going to give you another example of how something that is novel can be seem very relevant to us, and why this is such a wonderful way, and this is why nudging can be so, really an amazing way to help people make better decisions. Our acts are often influenced by subconscious cues, as in the case again of the green arrows or the trash cans. It is just noticing that something is a little bit different, and that really does influence our subconscious. And also our emotional associations can shape our actions. And again, this can be part of any of the nudging strategies. We really need to make a connection with a decision. We need to feel that whatever decision we're making is going to address our needs and our preferences. And we can find the perfect nudging strategy that is going to be the way that is going to really capture our imagination, and we'll be more willing to make the correct decision or a better decision. And we also act in ways that make us feel better about ourselves. So once we notice that we've done something right, like recycling, like washing our hands more often, like eating healthier, then we're going to feel better about ourselves. And that is going to reinforce, again, how we act and the decisions that we make going forward. So a tool that is being used to really help with nudging, or as a way to nudge individuals to making these better decisions, both at work and in our own personal lives, is technology. And I'm about to give you examples of how technology is being so effectively used, not only, again, to address our own personal needs and preferences, but really to create work environments where people can better connect, can better communicate, and have a work environment that really allows them to be the best they can be. And in the case of senior living, to provide the best possible home to all our residents. My favorite example of nudging through technology, as far as how it can help us make these, wonderful, healthier decisions, is something called the piano stairs. This was actually a group of technologies that came together, and they noticed that commuters tend to take escalators instead of stairs. So they wanted to see if reinventing a technology would have a positive effect on these commuters. So what they did is they took pianos, those floor pianos. You've seen those. If you're familiar with the movie Big, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. So they decided to reimagine that and reinvent it, if you will, to see if they could motivate people to do the right thing, to take these stairs, or not necessarily the right thing, but something that would be healthier for them to do. actually 66% more people decided to take the stairs as compared to prior to adding these piano stairs. So again, this is a wonderful example of how people are drawn to something innovative. And again, a great example of how nudging can really help people really, follow what other people are doing, but also because it is innovative, because it is fun, people would be more willing to take those stairs than the escalator as they did before. So again, this is a great example of nudging through fun and through using technology in a new and very innovative way. Now, there are certain wonderful training tools that are being integrated into senior living to help staff really, or to nudge staff to a better understanding of the residents. One of those tools is Embodied Labs, and they have created a technology that provides access to a growing library of virtual experience labs that simulate key problems and situations facing older adults living with dementia and their caregivers. Now, we all remember, how, or we might still be doing it, tying our fingers to simulate arthritis, or maybe walking on dried peas so we can understand how an older adult feels who might have some sort of issues with their feet or with diabetes or again, arthritis. So we've all been through these trainings. Embodied Labs actually takes the caregivers there. They allow them to really experience the world as somebody living with dementia experiences it. And again, this is a great tool that many organizations are really looking into in order to nudge their staff to better understand what it is to live with dementia. The other one is the hand-to-hand toolkit. This actually was sent to every skilled nursing community in the country some years ago. And the reason that I bring it up is because it is sort of old-fashioned technology, if you will. It is videos that allow folks to understand how and why people living with dementia might act and how to effectively address those needs of people living with dementia. If you're not familiar with the hand in hand, I suggest you talk to someone. I'm sure there is still out there. The videos are actually wonderful. They're really well produced and really give you an insight onto the of the challenges that many residents with dementia are actually facing, and also allow staff to be nudged to better not only understand, but better react to those challenges. And it's a great, great tool. Again, if you have a chance to look at it, if you have it somewhere in your organization, please take another look. It is really a fantastic tool. But the tool that I feel can be so incredibly powerful and so effective in nudging both professionals and residents into better interactions and relationships is engagement technology. The reason why is that engagement technology, which has been around for around 20 years now, and many organizations and companies have actually come into the field, it really does provide residents person-centered experiences. Those person-centered experiences that we know are so important for the well-being and the quality of life of residents. Engagement technology can also provide residents with access to the world at large. So think about any of the technologies that you have been using for the past year to allow your residents to contact loved ones or to take them to other places outside of your community so they can experience the world at a time when it's so difficult to do it, when it's so dangerous to do it. And of course, because it does allow access to the world at large and to loved ones and to many other people outside of that community, it reduces isolation. And as I mentioned before, that can be so detrimental to the health and well-being of senior living residents. For staff, it is a wonderful way to nudge them to see residents as people, not as patients. And that can be so important to their interactions, to the relationships that they form, and to really creating a bond that is going to be beneficial not only to the residents, but also to the staff, because we all want to make a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. And by being able to see these folks as people, not as patients, can just be so incredibly important. And by improving those interactions, you're really going to create an environment where people are going to enjoy being together, when you're really going to be able to see staff wanting to address those challenges in more effective ways. And maybe you will spark the creativity of many of your staff to finding new solutions to those challenges that your residents are facing on a daily basis. And of course, engagement technology allows staff to learn new skills. And that is always so important. If you can provide a work organization that supports the learning of new skills of your staff, you're already creating something that is of value to them. And they're going to want to return that by way of loyalty and by way of being the best they can be at their job. So, I'm now going to give you some examples of how technology can really impact both professionals and residents alike. How it can really create opportunities for them not only to get to know each other as people, but really to allow professionals to achieve their own goals as professionals, and not, whether it's, something that is trackable, something that they must accomplish. But also, by doing this, they're able to really connect with residents at a much deeper level, which can lead to, obviously, job satisfaction. My first example is Dorothy, and this is sort of a before and after. The before video, if you will, is our conventional model of motivation in senior living. And just to give you a little bit of background, this is a restorative care aide trying to motivate Dorothy to do her restorative care exercises. And this is the way that she has gone about it, and many professionals actually follow this same model, and you will recognize it as well.
Okay, go ahead and push with both arms. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Up you come. There, perfect.
No. Can we go back now?
Well, we're just going to do a couple more exercises.
I'm too tired.
Well, we want to make sure we let the doctor know we got them done, right?
What?
We want to let the doctor know you got them done.
I don't care what the doctor thinks.
Yeah.
No.
So yes, that is not the best way to motivate someone. And I'm sure you know somebody like Dorothy who really doesn't care what the doctor thinks. And why would we expect someone in their 80s or 90s to worry about what somebody in authority is going to think about, of them? It's really about what this professional may have actually, or the way that this professional was trained, was not perhaps the best way to be able to connect with this resident. And again, just letting somebody know that somebody in authority is going to be upset is not going to lead to the results that we need to actually get. So the second video is the same professional, and this, she had a chance to speak to this particular resident to learn more about her. The idea behind it was to see if maybe she could find something in technology that would allow her to connect with her and allow her to motivate her to do her exercises. And I call this the nudging to engage model. So what this professional noticed is when they were having a conversation, remember, this professional is trying to find something to connect with Dorothy, something to be able to nudge her to do her exercises. And she noticed that Dorothy's lights would light up every time she spoke about her childhood home. So this next video is the next time they got together, and this professional, along with a rehab professional, decided to use Google Earth, something as simple as Google Earth, to nudge Dorothy to do her restorative care exercises by taking her to her childhood home. And this is the result.
Okay. There it is. There's my house. There's my house. And in the summer, we'd take all the windows out and have an open porch and put screens in.
Yeah.
And it would be a screened-in porch. And we'd sleep out there. Oh, my heavens. Oh, my.
Do you want to go ahead and stand up, Dorothy?
I wonder if they take the windows out now.
Well, it looks like they have some window air
They look
conditioners.
permanent, don't they?
I stopped the video right there, although it goes on for another 20 minutes. They were able to walk, to do range of motion. Every time Dorothy touched the screen, you know how it seems to move when you use Google Earth, she would giggle. She is an explorer. That's what she wants to do. So after that, and going forward, that professional would take Dorothy to different places from her youth that she had always wanted to revisit using Google Earth and other applications. She would take her to places that she had always wanted to visit but never was able to do so. She was able to give her access to the outside world using engagement technology, and that was so powerful because Dorothy loved it. As you noticed during the video, she got up on her own. She didn't have to be in any way instructed to get up or being helped to get up. It was really of her own volition. She was not forced. She was engaged. She wanted to get up and continue looking at her childhood home. One of the things that I ask professionals whenever I show this video is to imagine yourself and this being your first day at this particular community. And your first impression of Dorothy is the first video. You're already going to make specific assumptions about Dorothy, that she's difficult, and that it's going to be very, very difficult for you to motivate her. So again, and maybe your first interaction with Dorothy will not be as, I guess, gregarious and fun if that's your first impression. You're always going to be a little bit on guard, always waiting for Dorothy perhaps to show that side of herself that is a little bit more negative. But now pretend that the first day of the job in this community is during the second video, that second interaction and second intervention. Your impression of Dorothy is going to be so vastly different. You're going to expect that your first interaction is going to be wonderful, that you're going to laugh, that you might be able to share stories. You might even discover that you come from a very similar place or maybe the same town. You're going to want to share those experiences. So from the very beginning, your interactions are going to be positive. Many times our own impressions of the people that we serve or our customers, if it's a regular company, is really based on preconceptions that we made, and because they are not being provided by the best experience possible. So again, Dorothy is a great example of how we can definitely change and pivot and really improve our interaction with residents if we find the way to connect with them, if we find ways to nudge them into doing the things that they need to do in order to stay healthy. Not by telling them that somebody in authority is going to be upset, by connecting with their own preferences, what they really want to do, and also addressing their needs. So I love this story because it really, really shows how nudging and technology can come together to form these amazing, amazing interactions. Another example is Joni. And as you can see, Joni is in the rehab gym and she has to do her rehab. And again, Joni does not want to do her rehab. She, it's who wants to? I mean, I don't even like to exercise, so you can imagine doing rehab, not something that's a lot of fun for a lot of people. So again, this is a professional who decided to use engagement technology to see if she could motivate Joni to do her rehab. And what she decided to do was to talk to Joni and really learn a little bit more about her, to see if she could find something that could motivate her. And she found out from Joni that she loves to dance and she loves to sing. So what this professional decided to do is use a karaoke application, something as simple as karaoke, to see if maybe this would be a way for them to be able to connect better, but also to really motivate Joni to do her exercises. And this is the result.
All right, up we go. All right, we're gonna walk forward. Keep walking towards it. Now we're walking backwards.
So talk about a positive experience. Even though she's having to do something she doesn't like to do, Joni is dancing. She's shaking her booty. They're laughing. They're smiling. What a difference. And that's what we want to do on a daily basis. We want to have positive experiences, even when we're having to do something we really don't want to do. And this is Joni's case. And this is a professional looking for solutions in order to be able to nudge her client to be able to do her exercises. And what a wonderful way to nudge this professional by providing her with a tool that is going to allow her to laugh with her clients and to have these wonderful experiences. Of course, she's going to want to get to work and really work with her residents a lot more than if she had to really have to, come up with other strategies that would not be as positive in order to motivate them. My next example is John, and this is a really wonderful story. So John moved into a memory care community. By the way, all of the examples that I'm providing are people living with dementia. There are different stages of dementia. And John moved into a community, and like many male residents, he started self-isolating. And we all know that happens a great deal. Instead of wanting to get to know his neighbors of his community, he just wanted to stay in his room. He would only come out during mealtime. So the staff at first was not too worried, but as his self-isolation continued, he started getting depressed. His cognition suffered, and it was really becoming an issue. He was really losing weight. So the staff decided to do something about it. So they spoke to his family to find out more about John, to see if maybe there was something they could do to motivate him to join the community, to get to know his neighbors. So they found out he had been a decorated pilot. So the staff decided to use something as simple as a flying simulator. Talk about a really wonderful engagement technology. A flying simulator to see if maybe they could finally connect with him and they could then help him to reduce his self-isolation. Now, this is a video of him flying. Doesn't show much. He's just there flying. So I'm going to stop it because it really doesn't say much. But what happened was that he really, really enjoyed it. He loved being able to fly his plane, and he really was enjoying this particular activity because he was being able to reconnect with that sense of self, that preferred sense of self. He saw himself as a pilot. That was important to him, and that is why he wanted to continue doing this. But remember that they sort of would bring in this engagement technology for him to fly the plane. But remember, the objective was not for him to stay in his room. They really wanted him to come out and meet his neighbors and become part of his community. So they told John that if he wanted to continue flying his flying simulator, he would then need to come out and sign his name on a sign-up sheet just in case somebody else wanted to use the technology, or maybe it was going to be used by a staff member in a particular intervention. So he did that. One day he went to the activities room and he noticed that nobody had signed up to use the technology. Nobody was going to be using the flying simulator. So he asked a staff member to please put on his flying simulator, and the staff member did. And by doing that, he just sat there, in the activity room and started flying his plane. Now, activity rooms are public places. So as you can imagine, other residents were passing by and they started noticing what John was doing. And remember, for this generation, being a pilot is an A-list profession. So they were talking with him, they were asking him questions, and he was beaming. He loved the attention. He was reconnecting with that preferred view of himself, an accomplished pilot. He was used to getting accolades by those around him. He was used to that, and he was getting that from his new neighbors, and he was loving it. How do we know that? Because the activities director was passing by when this was happening. And she had this amazing idea. Another example of how engagement technology can inspire creativity. She decided to talk with John to find out if John would consider becoming the community's pilot. They would schedule a trip every month. So John would be the pilot, he would take his fellow residents to a particular destination. They would set up the activities room like a plane. The residents were given tickets. The staff would become flight attendants. John would fly them to the destination, and then they would disembark. Then they would take a virtual tour of that particular destination. The activities director also worked with the dining services team to have munchies reminiscent of that particular destination. Again, partnerships between, staff if you have a great idea. So as you can imagine, this became the most popular activity in this community. Every month, the residents would gather around the newly published calendar to see to what destination John would be flying them that month. And as you can imagine, it was so important for John. He had a job to do. He was again a pilot. He was able to contribute to his community, and he garnered the admiration of his fellow residents, of his neighbors. So during the last years of his life, he has since passed away. Instead of really slowly going into more and more depression through self-isolation, and again, suffering from dementia, he was able to thrive. He was able to have the best quality of life possible during those last years because he was able to connect with that sense of self, and because this amazing staff member who was engaged because of the tools that she had been provided was able to create something so wonderful. That is one of my favorite stories of how engagement technology can have such a positive impact on a professional, on a community, and on an individual. So my next example is Angelo. And Angelo, again, moved into a community, again, living with dementia. He was in later stages of dementia. And during those during later stages of dementia, you tend to go back to those things that you learned first. And Angelo was an Italian immigrant, and he had moved to the United States to obviously provide a better life for himself and for his family. And when he moved into this community, he was already forgetting how to speak English. He was instead really only focusing on speaking Italian. And of course, this was really challenging for the staff because this was in Nebraska and not a lot of people speak Italian in Nebraska. So Angelo started self-isolating again because he wasn't able to communicate with any of the people around him. And the staff really started worrying as well because again, he was becoming depressed, and they could see that his cognition again was suffering. So they spoke to the family and found out that he had been an artist in Italy. He painted chapel ceilings, and they thought that was so wonderful, and they wanted him to reconnect with that sense of self as an artist. But they were a little bit nervous because they didn't know how he was going to react if they brought real paint, acrylics into the community and allowed him to paint. Remember, he was in later stages of dementia. So they decided to use engagement technology, and this was obviously one of those painting applications that you're familiar with. I'm sure some of you may have even used them many times. And that's what he's doing right there on the photograph. Now, they noticed how he loved to paint, how he was really being able to reconnect with that sense of self through his painting. So they decided to bring paints to him. And during the last years of his life, again, he has since passed away, he became that community's artist. And this is an example of how technology can be a bridge to help someone connect with that, with that passion that they have had all of their lives. And in this case, in the case of Angelo, is painting. So again, a tool being used in a way to allow someone to have the best possible quality of life. So again, great example. Another one of my favorite examples is Charlie. And Charlie, again, living with dementia. And like many residents, and if you work in a memory care community or with memory care residents, then you know that some of them want to go back to work. Their sense of self and the way that they identify is by their profession. Many of us do. So in the case of Charlie, he had been an office worker and he wanted to go back to, he wanted to go to the office. So every morning he would get up and just start, going by the nurse's station, going to the front door saying, I need to go to work. I need to go to work. I think I'm going to be late. I need to go to work. And the staff really didn't know how to address this. And they were also afraid because in this case, Charlie was an elopement risk. And, it was something that, they needed to find a solution for. So one day he went up to the nurse's station and one of the nurses was there and he started saying that he needed to go to work. That professional remembered that he had been an office worker. So what she decided to do was to pull up a really simple word processing application on an engagement technology system to see if that could help him at least feel that he was at work, and would then redirect him, and then he would feel less anxious and he would feel better. And so that's what she did. She pulled up the word processing application and Charlie sat there and started typing. At that moment, another resident was passing by. And she looked at Charlie. She looked at Charlie was typing and she asked, "Are you the complaint taker?" And Charlie said, "Yes." So she sat there and started complaining, how she didn't like the food, how her daughter didn't visit her, all of the complaints she just wanted to, get off her chest. And other residents started noticing that. So they went up to her and, one of them asked, "What are you doing?" She pointed to Charlie and said, "He's the complaint taker." The other residents started forming a line so they could voice their complaints. So because of this ingenious nurse who remembered that Charlie really wanted to go to work, not only did Charlie was then able to have a job in this community, but his fellow residents were able to voice their grievances to someone they felt would listen to them because he was typing them. And again, they were able to solve all of this. And remember, a lot of residents feel that people are not listening to them. This was a great solution for everyone in the community. Again, just the imagination, nudging people to think differently, nudging residents to do something that they value, and nudging other residents to take advantage of this so their own interests, their own needs are also addressed. Again, that is what goes through all of these stories. Now, during the age of COVID, of course, virtual meetings, virtual communication has become a must. But even before COVID, many residents have been using engagement technology to communicate with their loved ones, as Frank right there, with his daughter, who lives, I would say, 100 miles away. And because she lives far away, she can't visit Frank as much as she would like to. So the way that they have done it for years, is through Skype. They just get on the technology on Skype, and they're able to talk. It allows Frank to see someone who he loves. Phone communication is fine, but you really do need those visual cues. And that's what these virtual applications allow you to see, is that person that you're talking with. And it really allows somebody living with dementia to pick up on those visual cues so they can contribute to the conversation. And this is actually a video, but it's a very kind of poor quality video. But there is a point where the daughter can't remember the name of an old friend. And as she's talking, just because Frank is able to see his daughter, he's able to contribute to the conversation by remembering their last name, which is Johnson. And the daughter is thrilled. And Frank is smiling because they're having a wonderful conversation, reminiscing about old friends. And that can be so powerful, especially when you are forced to be isolated, as with COVID-19. So, there's much research that has proven that nudging can be extremely effective. And, again, this research is showing that nudging can encourage desirable actions. It can help increase efficiency from workers because of the examples that I've given you. And there are many other examples of how you can create an environment and different ways of nudging employees to have a better quality of, a better work environment. And accordingly, their work also becomes of better quality. You can also save money as an organization through nudging programs, nudging techniques, and as I demonstrated with the supermarket. But again, if you have an engaged workforce, if they feel that you're paying attention, if they're being provided those tools to nudge residents to have a better quality of life, then that means that your staff turnover rates are going to decrease. And that in itself can save so much money. Companies know that it is very expensive to have to rehire people very frequently. And of course, this reduces market failure. Many companies are using nudging because it can help them achieve their goals. And by that, they're able to continue thriving, and they're less likely to either go out of business if it's a company, or to suffer a lot of compliance issues if you're a senior living community. Now, engagement technology has also been shown to be extremely effective, and a lot of research over the past 20 years or so has demonstrated that engagement technology can improve the ability of residents to stay engaged for longer periods of time. It can increase their energy levels. It can really improve their general health. Social engagement is really increased and strengthened. And I already gave you some examples. It really is about getting to know the person and really having those wonderful, wonderful opportunities to totally engage, not just to talk, but to engage with a person. It also increases self-efficacy among residents, and that's what the studies has shown. But I also believe, and I don't know if research has been done on this, but I'm now going to find out now that I think about it, because engagement technology can also increase self-efficacy from staff, I'm sure. If you're able to have a tool that allows you to connect with residents, you're going to then go to that tool to find a way to connect with that resident on your own. You're not going to ask for new tools. You're going to really be looking at how you're able to use the current tools in a very effective way to make sure that you are achieving your own professional goals. Of course, higher quality visits. Families love it when residents are able to engage. The University of Washington was the one that actually demonstrated the higher quality visits as well, and a study conducted by the Greenhouse Project. It was actually conducted by Mather Lifeways Institute in several greenhouse projects. And again, they're showing that families really love and appreciate when staff learns more about their loved ones. And they're also then are able to learn how the staff is really addressing these challenges, and they take that also and they start using those tools to be able to better connect with their loved ones, especially those living with dementia, because it can be so difficult for families to find ways to connect with those loved ones. And of course, quality interactions between the elder and their staff. Again, this is from Mather Lifeways Institute and a few other research studies. It really allows that elder to appreciate that staff member, those staff members that pay attention, that want to talk with them, that want to interact with them. That is so important. And of course, for those staff members to find commonalities with the older adults, to get to know them as people, can be so vital for them to not only connect, but really to be able to provide the best possible quality of care. And of course, better interactions between family and staff. If families are really happy, with the kind of living and services that are being provided to their loved ones, they're really going to appreciate staff as well. And that can be so important for everyone in the community. It also increases participation from residents in social activities. Again, reducing that isolation, as with John, as with Frank, and with Charlie, it's reducing that isolation and really making sure that their needs are addressed. It can also reduce the use of antipsychotics. This is actually a study published by CAST a few years ago. They looked at Western home communities in Nebraska. They used engagement technology as a way to redirect residents living with dementia instead of relying on the use of PRN antipsychotics. So they were able to reduce the use of antipsychotics by 20%, and 50% less residents actually used antipsychotics during that intervention. So again, it's giving those tools to staff that allow them to really connect with the resident without having to rely on the antipsychotics. Of course, the enhanced staff-resident interactions, again, another CAS study conducted with another community in Maryland, increased job satisfaction. That particular intervention did show that staff had reported increased job satisfaction rates because, again, they were able to be provided with a tool that allowed them to connect with the residents. And in enriched therapeutic rehab experiences, I showed you Joni. Think about it. Isn't it so much better to be able to have fun while you're doing something like rehab? That can be so powerful and so valuable. And it really addresses the needs of rehab professionals for them to be able to achieve those professional goals that they need to in order to make sure that the residents maintain their physical health. And of course, increases therapy tolerance. If you're having fun, you're not going to be thinking about that you're doing therapy. You want to continue doing what you're doing because you're having so much fun. And of course, it can reduce depression and hospitalization. And that's something that we're looking to do, especially during COVID-19. We know now that we were not as prepared as we could have been to address the needs of residents during an extended period of isolation. Engagement technology can be a really effective way for you to be able to be prepared should anything like this or something similar happen again. And remember, sometimes you have other viruses that are part of senior living that you have to contend with. And if you have the tools, if you have engagement technology or any of the tools that will help you better connect with residents and allow your residents to have access to the outside world, then that in itself is going to be priceless. An additional benefit for skilled nursing communities is compliance. Think of engagement technology as a way for you to address a number of F tags that appear in the final rule. And this is a great way for you to start thinking about how you can use these tools. Remember, surveyors are looking now for tools that address isolation, that address quality of life. They want to see that you are really thinking in innovative ways to ensure that you are providing the best quality of life for your residents. So again, engagement technology can be one of the tools that you can show surveyors that you're implementing in wanting to make your community the best possible home for your residents. So thank you so much for being part of this presentation, and I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Have a wonderful spring, a wonderful summer, a wonderful 2021. Of course, we all know the best is yet to come. Thank you so much.